Bojack Horseman Season 5, Episode 6, Free Churro, contains a 22-minute, 20-second monologue. No show should have that much talking. TV is a visual medium. Now, before you rage quit this video from having your knickers twisted too far into a tizzy, those are not my words or thoughts on what I consider to be one of the best episodes in the series. Those are Bojack's words. At the time of speaking, they are being said to Princess Carolyn, and are in reference to Filbert, the show Bojack is headlining in Season 5.
No show should have that much talking. TV is a visual medium.
But just as important as the words themselves is when they are spoken. These words are said in Episode 5, just before Bojack's own 22-minute monologue. I think the writers purposefully included this line because they were aware of what a departure from tradition Free Churro would be. It is simultaneously a joke about the show and an acknowledgement by the creators to the audience that they recognize how unique and delicate Bojack's monologue would be. Today, I would like to revisit that monologue with a shiny new coat of video editing paint because I want to identify and unpack the writing that I feel went into building up the major themes of Free Churro. For all of you who might have heard of theme but never actually got a true definition, we can start with that. A theme is the central topic or idea of a text, television and cinema included. Themes can be divided into two categories, statements and concepts. A thematic statement is what the work says about itself. A thematic concept is what the audience thinks the work is about. Without getting too deep into the rabbit hole, the distinction can further be understood by studying the terms created by Roland Barthes, a French philosopher and narrative theorist. He writes about the differences between readerly and writerly text. A readerly text makes no requirement of the reader or audience to produce their own interpretation of the theme. The work explains itself and gives all the answers to its own questions. A writerly text is the exact opposite. Its themes, its core message, is laid out in a way that must be digested and thought about. The answers aren't easy, and each person who interacts with the work might come away with their own interpretation. The audience becomes a writer for the text because each person's opinion is valid. Bojack Horseman as a show steeps itself in striving to be part of the writerly category, and Free Churro is no different. Bojack is a dynamic, flawed, ever-changing character, and his eulogy monologue was much the same. Free Churro's meaning is not easy to grasp, nor are its implications for Bojack. But I think this is what makes it so alluring, and what also makes it one of the highest rated episodes of the entire show. I want to take a look at the themes in the episode to demonstrate for all of you aspiring writers out there how to go about creating a writerly text, and to also tip my hat to Raphael Bob Waxberg, Will Arnett, and the entire creative team for their amazing work on the show. The first theme we will look at, being the most powerful and prominent, is the concept of being seen. It is so central to the episode that it's actually used to create the framework of a typical story structure: introduction, conflict, and resolution. We see Bojack introduce us to the events of his mother's death and the last words she said to him.
I was in the hospital with her those last moments, and they were truly horrifying, full of nonsensical screams and cries. But there was this moment, this one instant of strange calm, where she looked in my direction and said, "I see you." It's the last thing she said to me. I see you.
A while after, we see Bojack in conflict with what his mother's "I see you" really meant.
Maybe it wasn't about connection. Maybe it was an I see you, like, I see you. Like, you might have the rest of the world fooled, but I know exactly who you are. That's more my mom's speed. Or maybe she just literally meant, I see you. You are an object that has entered my field of vision. She was pretty out of it at the end there, so maybe it's dumb to try to attribute it to anything.
Finally, towards the end of the monologue, Bojack comes to the resolution of the circumstances surrounding his mother's last words.
But I keep going back to that moment in the ICU when she looked at me and, I see you. I see you. Jesus Christ. We were in the intensive care unit. She was just reading a sign.
If you ever wondered what kept the monologue from seeming incoherent or rambling, it was this theme that gave structure to everything that Bojack was saying. Each time the monologue started to stray into obscurity, we would snap back to the crux of the episode: Beatrice's death and how it relates to Bojack. The theme of being seen gave this episode form, and it also pervaded nearly every facet of the episode too.
It's an odd realization that that's the thing that you've been missing, the only thing that you wanted all along, to be seen. Beatrice Horseman was born in 1938 and she died in 2018, and I have no idea what she wanted. Unless she just wanted what we all want, to be seen.
Being seen as a person is one of the most important things in Bojack's life. It is a validation for him. In this episode, we see him uninterrupted for 22 minutes. Conversely, we see Beatrice Horseman, whom this episode and eulogy are about, not once, not even in a flashback. The title of the episode didn't even reference Beatrice. She was beaten out by a stick of hot cinnamon. In fact, we were supposed to see her, as was Beatrice's desire for an open casket, but Bojack deemed her too horrifying to be seen, and denied his mother a dying wish, a wish that he himself wanted but was never granted.
She wanted an open casket, but, she's dead now, so who cares what she wanted?
Being seen is such an overarching concept that it affects the episode from the very start.
Yes, I see you. Get in.
These are the first words spoken in Free Churro, and ironically, Butterscotch goes on to monologue for the rest of the opening, barely actually looking at Bojack at all. Even when Bojack is being seen, he isn't being seen in the right way, and it affects how he sees himself. Which leads us into our second theme of the episode, how Bojack frames life.
All I know about being good I learned from TV. And in TV, flawed characters are constantly showing people they care with these surprising grand gestures, and I think that part of me still believes that's what love is.
This central closeness to television permeates throughout Bojack's entire character. His parents were not responsible for imparting crucially important, fundamental aspects of humanity on him, at least as far as he is concerned. TV did that for him. So it's only natural that instead of being seen by his parents, he strived to be seen on TV. In his eulogy monologue, he references not one, but 3 different television shows and intertwines them with himself to give them great personal intimacy. When telling a story about his childhood and his mother buying him a jacket that he always wanted, he reveals that the story was all fictional, taken from an episode of Maude that he watched when he was younger. And at the end, he states why the episode of television is important to him.
I remember when I saw it thinking, that's the kind of story I want to tell about my parents when they die.
That same episode of Maude, where Bojack grabbed the story from, sees Maude monologuing to a therapist. The next television show mentioned in the eulogy is Becker, and Bojack goes so far as to make a one-to-one comparison between his reality and the show.
And when it got canceled, I was really bummed out. Not because I liked the show, but because I knew it could be so much better, and now it never would be. And that's what losing a parent is like. It's like Becker.
This section of the monologue also sheds some light on how Bojack sees himself. He is a rich, famous man in Hollywood, someone with all the right pieces, but somehow can't put it all together, even though he keeps waiting and waiting for it to happen. Bojack frames his life relative to television because of his need to be seen, because of youthful dependence on television as a barometer for morality, and because he himself is inextricably tied to television because of Horsing Around, the third show that he mentions.
I used to be on this TV show called Horsing Around. Seriously though, hold your applause. Well held.
Horsing Around, a fictional show, became Bojack's identity. He is known as the horse from Horsing Around. The literal first words of the outro are, "Back in the 90s, I was in a very famous TV show." Through Horsing Around, Bojack was simultaneously able to be seen by millions of people and live a completely safe, structured, healthy family life, one that he did not care was fictional. And it's because of this strong tie to television, Horsing Around specifically, that Bojack stayed so at odds with his mother. She never liked the show. She never watched it or cared to. She refused to see Bojack in real life and in television, which only fed into his desire to become so famous and recognizable that people would have no choice but to see him. This merging of television and reality transforms from thematic to literal in the last episodes of Season 5, where Bojack actually cannot distinguish between what is scripted and what is not, and the consequences of this force him to one of his lowest points. That low point is a product of the last theme of the episode, Bojack's addiction to dysfunction. Now, if you're a fan of the show, I don't have to tell you that Bojack makes bad decisions, constantly, for himself and others. But I think Bojack revealed the underlying reasons as to why he does these things. He has been conditioned to live in dysfunction, waiting for it to resolve itself. He blatantly says as much.
When you're a kid, you convince yourself that maybe the grand gesture could be enough. I kept waiting for that, the proof that even though my mother was a hard woman, deep down, she loved me and cared about me and wanted me to know that I made her life a little bit brighter. Even now, I find myself waiting.
Bojack could never move on from his self-destructive lifestyle, nor walk away from his emotionally abusive mother, because he found comfort in it. It was the only thing that connected him to his parents. Abject depressive anguish was the only thing that bound the family as a unit.
Mostly you're drowning. She understood that too. And she recognized that I understood it. And Dad, all three of us were drowning and we didn't know how to save each other. But there was an understanding that we were all drowning together. And I would like to think that that's what she meant when we were in the hospital and she said, I see you.
Bojack couldn't let go and move on from his mother because he doesn't know how to let go of negative things. He steeps himself in dysfunction because that is where he is most comfortable. Even when he does receive something good, the thing he said he truly wanted out of life, to be seen by his mother, he has to turn it into something negative to properly cope.
Let me tell you, it's a weird thing to feel at 54 years old that for the first time in your life, your mother sees you. It's an odd realization that that's the thing that you've been missing, the only thing that you wanted all along, to be seen. And it doesn't feel like a relief to finally be seen, it feels mean. Only my mother would be lousy enough to swipe me with a moment of connection on her way out.
And do you remember how I said Bojack's identity became inseparable from horsing around? That show allowed him to exist in an environment with a completely dependable supply of dysfunction. Bojack himself says it in the eulogy.
You can't have happy endings in sitcoms, not really, because if everyone's happy, the show would be over. And above all else, the show has to keep going. There's always more show. And you can call horsing around dumb or bad or unrealistic, but there's nothing more realistic than that. You never get a happy ending, because there's always more show.
Bojack views life as a sequence of continuously worsening events that wear you down until you die. He has a defeatist attitude and chooses negativity because he believes it is inevitable anyway. He then uses the horrible consequences of his choices as validation for a bleak rationale. There was one sliver of hope, though, that kept Bojack moored to the idea of betterment. But unfortunately, that too was snuffed out in the episode.
My mom died and all I got was this free churro.
To Bojack, Beatrice dying was supposed to be her grand gesture of love, the kind that TV taught him always came from flawed characters, a gesture that was supposed to put something to rest in him. He expected to gain something from her death. And all he got was a free churro. For all of you aspiring writers out there, I hope this video sheds some light on some of the intricacies and payoffs of creating themes in narratives. Thematic management might not be as glamorous as cliffhangers or dialogue or characterization, but it is just as important in creating a full, gripping piece of work. I had a blast remaking this video, mostly because I will take any excuse to put Bojack Horseman in my life. Also, you can expect a completely new video on Season 6 very soon. As always, it was a pleasure, and I will talk to you all again soon.